My name is Davis Jamieson. My passion and career path was in the tennis world. I'm the tennis director at a high-end private club in Toronto, Canada. However, a magnetic force has pulled me in, and it's going to pull you in too. The sport is paddle or padel. I'm going to be your host on the PPL Podcast. I will be learning, just like you, from episode to episode about this amazing sport that's sweeping the world. You may not have heard of it, but you will soon. The Pro Padel League is the first North American paddle league. This is truly the first of its kind, and I'm so excited to take this journey with all of you. With guests today, I have the two co-founders, Keith Stein and Marcos Del Pilar. Guys, how are you doing today?
Hey, Davis.
All good. Thank you, Davis.
Marcos, I want to start with you because you have a nice tan and you look so handsome today. So I'm starting with you. Are you from the United States originally?
No, I'm from Spain.
You're from
Born
Spain.
and raised in Spain. Yeah, in Madrid, the capital.
You're from nice. And how long have you been in the padel world?
I could say that for the last 25 plus years in the racket sports world, I got started in tennis, obviously, when I was a little kid playing the circuit and so on. And then I went from there, so a couple of decades already.
Now, Keith, you tell me something about you. You've been in US and Canada your whole life. What made you be a part of this big endeavor?
I went to a friend's house 2 years ago, and he had this thing in his backyard I'd never seen before. It was a paddle court, or as we say, padel court. I went on the court, and it was love at first sight. And I felt very conflicted because your audience members should know that Davis is my tennis coach. And he does a poor job because I'm still not a very good player.
But I'm trying to hold up my reputation here, Keith. Come on.
I felt like I was cheating on Davis, but that was the first moment of inspiration when I encountered padel. And then I just started thinking about it. I talked to my friends in Europe, and I realized this thing is a phenomenon over there. And then I continued researching it, and all roads, this is no exaggeration, all roads led to this guy, Marcos. And I did more research, and I realized this guy is the face of the sport in America, the number one pioneer. I like to call him the godfather of padel. And I reached out to him, and I think when I first called him, he probably was a little skeptical. Who is this guy calling me out of the blue? How did you feel, Marcos? Were you a little skeptical, or what did you think?
Well, believe it or not, I'm receiving that kind of calls, like every day. Like a lot of people calling just to ask you to get introduced to the sport, that they want to know more. And based on my personality, and my mission in life, what I usually say is I'm pretty open, to help everybody. So I was open, to help you as well. So I said, hey, I don't remember that call. You got to let me know. But I'm assuming that I was pretty open, and supportive, and say, hey, whatever you are interested to do in padel, man, I'll be backing you up and try to do my best for making you succeed if possible. So you remember that call or not?
Keith remembers everything.
I do, and it's a good thing, because if you had not taken my call, my next call was going to be the guy who runs the American Lacrosse Association. So we could be talking about a totally different league today. I'm joking.
Glad you picked up, Marcos.
I knew, actually, Davis, I mean this. I knew that as soon as I connected with Marcos and he was in, this thing was all going to work out. We were going to have a tremendous success.
So let's talk about this. So this is pretty exciting, because this is actually two people's dreams combining as one. So I've met Marcos before, and he's given me a bit of the story about the background of this league and his excitement surrounding it. So you guys meet, you talk, there's fireworks immediately, and there's an excitement. Tell me where it goes from there. Where did you go from the first conversation to us starting in May?
3 words for me, Marcos. Attack, attack, attack. We went into attack mode, and we haven't stopped. Seriously, it turns out, so it was very serendipitous. What are the odds? 2 guys we had never met, totally different backgrounds from different parts of the world, but we both have this ferocious I think, energy and appetite for getting things done. And we just went into execute mode, and we haven't stopped. But it was very, very interesting that I found a kindred spirit in Marcos, someone who is as enthusiastic as I am. That's my reaction. What's yours, Marcos?
Well, believe it or not, that concept resonated to me a lot. And I need to give, all the credit to Keith. I usually say that he's the brilliant mind behind the concept, because he's that for real. So he was the one that was proposing me, like, Marcos, this is what I have in mind, and so on. And believe it or not, this is a funny thing. I told him, listen, you cannot imagine that I tried to put together a similar concept in Spain like 5 or 6 years ago, and nobody understood that. So I was trying to put a similar concept, with soccer teams and Formula One teams and so on under a franchise model. And that was not the right timing or the right place. So in Spain, I found a lot of resistance. Some people telling me like, hey, we don't understand this. The franchise model is not going to work, and so on. So that was kind of funny. When Keith was explaining me the concept, I started laughing, right away. I said, man, I'm all in, I'm all in, because I've been through this journey already, at least in my mind, I'm putting some concepts together. So that was a fantastic idea.
And that's so interesting to hear that, Marcos.
David, could I just point something out?
Yeah.
Because I'm not trying to pat myself on the back or Marcos, but what we both have learned so far in this journey is that it's hard as hell to build a league. Just building a league. Now, if you wanted to build a new baseball or soccer league or even a lacrosse league, people know what those things are. But when you're building a league and it's a Padel league, and most people you talk to in North America have never heard of it, it adds a whole other layer of complexity and challenge to it. So it was very tough going. Look, every day is still hard in different ways. Now that we've got this great league that has tremendous momentum, let's step back and underline, this is the world's first and North America's first professional Padel league. And today, fast forward today, because we only started this a short time ago. We've been working our asses off ever since. But fast forward to today, and we have 7 franchises in the PPL, the Pro Padel League, 7 great franchises. It's a truly North American league. We've got a team in Canada. We've got 5 teams in the US, and we have a franchise in Cancun, Mexico, with all great team owners. And we're very proud to say we're going to commence our inaugural season in May, and we're going to be broadcast nationally across America.
Wow, that's incredible.
We've come a long way. A lot of work to do, but at the beginning, and I'm sorry to talk so much, but I just want you to understand this background, Davis, what Marcos and I have gone through. At the beginning, we'd call people and say, tell them great opportunity to become an owner in this league, and a lot of people didn't know what we were talking about. Fast forward now, we have people calling us every single day, very well-known people, some famous people, billionaires and sports personalities, celebrities. They now want to buy teams. So it's completely flipped. But I'll tell you something. It was very important to get the ball rolling. And the guy who got the ball rolling was Marcos, because selling, what I've learned is, it's like in any business, it's that first breakthrough, which is so critical. In the league context, selling that first team. And Marcos and I will never forget the first 2 teams who bought into this league because of Marcos. People believed in him. And that's the only smart thing I did, was partnering with this guy because of his credibility and the trust people have in him. So maybe Marcos, I don't want to steal your agenda, Davis, but at some point we should talk about how those first 2 teams, Los Angeles and San Diego, Chris and Gabrielle and Ryan, had faith in Marcos.
That's where I was going. That to me, that's the inception. So that's exactly where I was going with this. I wanted to hear from Marcos how those initial conversations went, how you got people excited about it. Clearly, these people were already in the Padel world, but what you've done through your enthusiasm, right, your infectious personality, you're able to convince these people, but not through the typical convincing. You just had to express what this league meant. So talk a little bit about your first few conversations with these owners and how you were able to convince them.
Well, first of all, what I want to say is that I was lucky enough to have, incredible, people around. So in terms of these guys, E Paddle, and Chris and the team, or Gabriel with Tactica, and Ryan, and all the team in there, we've known, each other for a long time. We've been doing a lot of things together for a long time. And I know that they are, great players, in the padel industry. They had great plans, and they have been doing a great job already. So that was kind of easy for me to approach them and say, like, hey, based on the relationship that we have, all the great things that you guys are doing, now we are trying to put together this new concept. So how do you see that, And since they all believe in the sport, believe in the growth of the sport in North America, obviously they got the concept right away. So what I told them, from the very beginning is, listen, I wanna leave a legacy. I wanna build something amazing for the players, for the fans, for obviously the franchise owners and everyone involved. But we all, Keith and I, want to leave a legacy in the sport. We want to do something great. We want to grow the exposure for the sport, and we want to make padel to succeed in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So I would do whatever is needed to help this, and then we started to brainstorm a little bit, and explaining them what the concept is, about this new ecosystem, that was supposed to be changing a lot of people's lives in North America. So I don't want to say that it was easy, because obviously it was, a long process, but I'm grateful and honored, for having their support, from day one. And, everything else is history. We sign up, with Chris and E Paddle, then we sign up with Gabriel, and then we started to bring more players, or more team owners to the table.
One thing that I noticed, guys, with you guys is that you have all the owners that I've spoken with, regardless of their padel background, they show a great deal of passion in what's going on here, to the point where, like, I used the word infectious earlier. When I sit into meetings with these guys, there's an excitement that I have not seen before. Keith, I interrupted you there.
No, I want you to come back to that point, but I just want to add that, building a league, doing something like this, it's a team effort. So Marcos and I have been working very hard, but we could not have done this without Andreas Kloppenberg, without Joel Meyerson, without Matt Warren, Anand, Nancy
Malone.
Nancy Malone is the head of the Canadian Padel Association, and she's heading up our drafts. Anyway, there's a big team.
Well, it takes a team. It takes a full village to get this going.
Expanded further. We now have a kick-ass management team.
Yeah.
Which you need to have in place, because this is about a sport, but it's also a business. And we pay a lot of attention to having the right business plan and adhering to the right business principles, because we have a responsibility now to all of the owners, the league, and the fans to make this a great success. So we're putting all the building blocks in place.
So let's talk about fans, because that's a big part of this. Right now in North America, there's probably a limited amount of people who have played this. I think that the perception of padel in North America is similar to the way it was in tennis many years ago, is that it's potentially a rich person's sport and that only the rich play it. That's clearly not the case. Since I've been involved in this world, and it's only recent, to me, it's accessible to everybody as long as the courts are built and people are being aware of it. What is this league going to do just for that? As far as a fan base, how explosive is this league going to be for a person that's maybe just a squash player or a tennis player that hasn't heard much of padel? What's it going to do for that person? Because I think that's going to be impactful. Marcos, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, I would love to say that prior to get the fans engaged, we needed to do something, which is build the next generation of heroes and superstars in North America. It was part of our main topic from the very beginning. We wanted to do this for the players first.
Yeah.
So we put all our efforts on creating a structure that is giving these new players, these new generations of players in North America, a place to start signing, so they can become the new generation of superstars, heroes that at some point will start engaging, with all the fans. I think that that we needed to create something that could get, all the fans engaged. But prior to that, we needed to put, we still need to put all these players on the right spot to start signing and become, celebrities in their cities. So a lot of people in their cities will follow them, as the superstars, connected with Padel. Obviously, these two things together, will drive into a big increase of participation, because by building this community of fans, obviously we'll be creating the need for people to play. And automatically, this is connected with the need of building more and more facilities.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can see in here, is kind of a round thing, where we are trying to feed, the interest of everybody in here. So we are building something for the players, for the fans, also creating the need for building new facilities in the country, also creating a platform. I would love Keith to talk about it later, but also creating a platform to give exposure, for the sport, broadcasting, television, and so on. So everything is a little bit connected, but I would put the attention on the players first. They are the real, stars of all these things. Players, and automatically, the team owners as well, for sure.
But you know something, Marcos? I agree with everything you said, but just back to one of the points Davis was making. This is a rich man's, and still man. Our sport, our teams are going to be comprised of men and women. We're very proud of that. But the sport today in America, it's a rich guy's sport, and that's going to change. So there's a bunch of billionaires in Los Angeles, Miami, Toronto, the Bahamas, and they have their own private courts in their backyard. Right now, there's maybe a couple hundred courts in the U.S. Marcos can tell me the exact number, whether it's 250 or 300. It's not a lot. But guess what? Marcos is forecasting that over the next 7 years or so, there's going to be a mushroom. There's going to be 30,000 courts built. There'll be 10 to 15 million players, new players. When that happens, and it's going to happen, it's starting to happen right now, the sport is going to become an every man and every woman sport. So that transformation is already underway. We're aware of the courts that are being built. And thank goodness for the Latino community, because they have played the key role. It was invented in Mexico, and there's a large Latino community. I'm here in Florida right now, but throughout the US, and they are leaders in this sport. In Spain as well, and they come to America to work, and they're bringing this sport in, and they're democratizing it. But he's been the key guy, Marcos, in democratizing the sport, taking it away from just the rich people and bringing it to the people. The PPL is going to be, I believe, the major catalyst for the explosion of the sport, because suddenly people are going to see it on network television in a couple of months for the first time. Now you can watch on YouTube, but most people don't even know to look for it. So soon it's going to be on broadcast TV, and there will be home teams in your local market you can root for. So fans are going to have a rooting interest. Everything's going to change. And I think the PPL is going to be at the forefront of that change.
What's unique about the PPL as well is that if you just had a tour, let's say you had a tour come into Florida to play a tournament, and you had the best players in the world come, that does not grow the sport, right? We know that a tour coming in with players doesn't grow the sport. What grows the sport is what Marcos was saying, which is a team in your city that you root for, that's from your city, from your country. That's how little kids, 6 and 7 years old, get passionate about something. If all they see is a tour come around once a year, it's like tennis in Canada. Tennis in Canada has always been popular, but it's really blown up since Felix and Dennis and all these players have come forward, right? So the team tennis format and having actual cities being represented, it's an incredible idea for the growth of the sport.
I thought you were going to mention Steve Rogel. That's Toronto trivia.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Davis, I even when I agree, I want to be grateful, and show, a lot of appreciation to all the people that have been involved in the growth of the sport in the last years in North America. So I truly believe that the PPL is going to boost, that growth. But I think it is fair as well to share the credit, with all the people that have been working so hard, for the last 20 years in North America, growing the sport, building facilities. The fact that we have someone, that are bringing, the tour to Miami, for several years and so on. That's an amazing asset for us, and we gotta be grateful enough for having these people supporting the sport. I want to give them all the credit because that's amazing, and we all are here because of them as well.
Mhm.
So all the coaches, all the directors, all the investors, all the players, man, we have a bunch of players, hundreds of players that have been supporting the sport, for years, and we couldn't be here without the support of all these investors, and believers on the sport, for the last decades.
Mhm.
But Marcos, can we stop being so nice and political now? I know that you're very sincere and that comes from the heart. But now let's talk about all the crazy owners we have in the PPL, and they're so competitive. You were there.
I got a story. I got a nice story about it right away. I want to tell that.
Let's hear it. Let's go into it.
Listen, I had an incredible experience. Let's start talking about Ronnie Strasser, and the team in Miami. I had an incredible experience. I got them introduced, all the team. Davis, you were there as well with Richard and Ronnie. Man, this guy, I hope he doesn't mind this, but this guy is unbelievable. Ronnie Strasser, is a maniac, man. He's the most competitive guy that I have ever met, man. I had an incredible experience with you guys on the court, explaining you the rules and so on. And he was so excited, he couldn't stop. And Marcos, but I want to win,
So hyper.
Oh my goodness, man. He's a total maniac.
But Davis, I wasn't there. You were on the court with Marcos and Richard and Ronnie.
Yeah.
Ronnie said, you and Richard, and you guys are real tennis pros. He said you were useless.
Yeah, useless is a strong word. I would put the president of Miami, Richard Nicholson, as the useless one. I was slightly useless, but not quite as much. The wall, Richard still has issues with walls because he can't stand that wall at the back of the Padel court. Most tennis players are going to have an adjustment to that. But what a great experience that was. Marcos, you put it so well. Ronnie is the craziest, nicest, most amazing maniac you'll ever meet. But to be around him is a treat, and he makes you feel a way that no one else can. But what about we also have another brother? We have Ronnie's brother, Henry Strasser, the owner of the Las Vegas team. I'm hoping to do an episode with those two later, but you won't meet any two more competitive people, never mind brothers. So what an exciting thing for the league.
Is this the only league in the world?
It is. I looked it up. It's the only league in the world that have franchise owners as brothers. And we're going to
competing like crazy. I can tell you.
And
they won't compete it'll be to the death for those two. Like they won't.
Davis, tell everybody about the text you got from Henry. As soon as he found out you were working with Miami, because Davis is friends with Ronnie and Henry, both brothers.
So let's quickly give you the background. Like I said at the top, I'm the tennis director at a high-end club in Toronto. Both Henry and Ronnie and Keith are members at this club, and I teach them all tennis. Ronnie and Henry play twice a week for an hour with me, and it's a bloodbath. It's a bloodbath with DNA experts cleaning up the blood. These guys go at each other, and it's incredible to be around. But these guys are so competitive that they are going to push the league forward because they're not going to settle for just being okay. People like this make things wonderful. Because
what did Henry say to you the first time you heard?
Okay, so for all the children listening, I need you to shut your ears right now. But when I text Henry to tell him what I was planning on doing with Team Miami, his immediate text back was, "Fuck you, Miami." So as competitive as I teach these guys tennis, but as soon as I signed on to be a part of the Miami team, there was no love lost from Henry Strasser, and I love it.
Hey, on a serious note, though, these guys are serious business people, and they make moves. Yeah. So, Davis, are you allowed to say who is now part of your group in Miami?
Yeah.
Who Ronnie's brought in?
So we wanted to have someone impactful in the Miami area, someone impactful in the Latin community, and someone impactful from a rackets perspective. So we approached the legendary Juan Martin Del Potro, and he has agreed to come on as not just an ambassador, but to have an actual big role with our club. whether it be picking players, the draft process, decision-making of who plays. He's going to be a big part of that. And I mean, I'm excited. I know Ronnie's excited. The whole team's excited. And the league is excited because this guy is a monster powerhouse in the racket world.
And an incredible nice guy as well. So he's an incredible human being as well.
And then
he's a high level of ambassador.
Henry Strasser with the Las Vegas team, Rick and Abe, they have a major casino owner, someone who's very famous in Nevada, who's part of their group. So they're doing very interesting things also. By the way, on the athlete front, you're bringing athletes into franchises. The Toronto franchise is going to be announcing in the next few days a world famous soccer player that has joined their ownership group. One of our California teams, I'm not even going to be more specific, Marcos, because I know we can't say anything, but let's just say that one of our California teams is exploring bringing on a famous tennis player, not just to be a coach or an executive, but to be a player with the team. And that's going to be very fascinating, because I'd like to ask Marcos, who knows and worked with the best paddle players in the world, how will a world-class tennis player, Marcos, how will he do when he moves on to the paddle court? Will he be a fish out of water, or will he pick it up really quickly?
And we're not talking about Richard Nicholson anymore, Marcos.
Well, that's a very interesting question, because all these, the level of these tennis players is massive. They are super talented guys. Obviously, they gotta work on a transition on how to understand the walls and so on. But I can tell you that most of them are already playing padel. So they are not newcomers. They are the face of tennis, world class tennis players, top 5 tennis players in the world and so on. But they are super talented. They have been playing padel. They are not the stars of padel in the world because obviously have a different career, but they are very familiar with the sport. But I want to point, I don't want to interrupt you guys, but I wanted to point 2 important things in here. By listening to you guys, I realize, how important it is, this step that we are making now. So approaching, famous super top 10 tennis players in the world and getting them attached, to the sport of padel somehow, that is going to give us, a different stage. We'll be able to get padel to a different height. But there is, another important thing in here. By listening to you guys, Ronnie and Henry, they have never been connected with padel. So now we have these kind of profiles of very successful businessmen that are interested in growing padel. So I think there's a big thing in here. Everything that we are putting together by bringing these businessmen, to work with padel somehow, to make their investment connected with this, to have the passion to grow the sport, is going to help, padel to grow, and to boost, the participation and exposure a lot.
But Marcos, I want to put Marcos on the spot. If Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal today said, we're not playing tennis anymore, we're just going to focus on padel, how good would they be compared to the best paddle players? Would they become number 1, 2, and 3 in the world in padel?
There are, so many things to be considered. We have some cases of former tennis players trying to jump into the tour in here, and they didn't become, top 10. So there's a lot of things to consider. I mean, tennis players are super talented, but competing, in teams is different than competing alone. When you're playing tennis, you're playing alone. Strategy-wise is a little bit different as well. So you don't build to get winners in here. You got to base on consistency, putting the ball in play, try to understand what the structure of the points and game patterns are. So I couldn't say, man, I have too much respect for both. All the padel players in the world are very good friends of mine. Some of the best tennis players in the world are very good friends of mine too. So I would love to see that.
Marcos,
anyway.
let's put it a slightly different way here. If I took the number 1 padel player in the world and the number 1 tennis player in the world, that's Djokovic, and I had them both train in their other sports. So Djokovic trained in padel and the number 1 padel player trained in tennis for 6 months. And then they played each other in both of those sports. Who do you think would do better? Would Djokovic do better in the world of padel against the number 1 padel player? Or do you think the padel player would transition into tennis and do better against Djokovic?
I would say that the transition to tennis to padel is probably easier than the opposite. Padel to tennis, the court, as you know, is wider. Is different. It's completely different. So I think that we can use, all the tennis abilities easily to jump into a padel court and do it, more or less, good. And in the opposite way, you got to work a little bit harder.
Right.
Hey,
That's very
Davis,
interesting.
but everyone should know that Marcos used to be a very, very good tennis player. So Davis, Marcos can kick your ass in paddle and tennis, probably.
That's not true.
That's so discouraging. That's so discouraging. I was feeling so good.
Marcos, how good were you in tennis? How far did you get?
I tried to play the tour, and all the challengers and so on. So I tried, but I was not good enough. And as well as in padel, I was not good enough. I would say that I had it, an acceptable level, but not to be on the top.
What was your highest ranking in both sports?
900, I think, in tennis, and top 100 in padel.
That's
I'm just
impressive.
guessing,
That's very
impressive. But listen, back in the years, it was completely different. Being top 100 when I used to play, back in the years was not, the same that being top 100 now. Top 100 now, man.
There were only 100 players back then.
Exactly. And I was,
maybe 90.
Out of that. Exactly. I was out of that. Yeah. So I tried
how many
my best,
players? How many players
I
now?
don't think say it again.
How many players around the world now? Would you, if you had if it's grown substantially in the research I've done, not just in the European countries, but in Asia, it's getting huge. I saw that Dubai has a ton of players. Like, it's growing.
It's growing like crazy. So it's taking the world by storm. I think the stat now are over 30 million players worldwide, and growing and growing and growing. And the expectation and all the forecasts that we all are working together is to probably double, that pretty soon. So we are expecting to get kind of 12 to 15 million players in the next 6 or 7 years in the United States only.
Yeah.
So that is going to change the entire world of racket sports in North America.
Like I said at the top, the magnetic force toward it. When I played with you, Marcos, I daydreamed about it for weeks. That the experience, not just with you, because you were incredible to be on court with, but my squash experience, although be limited, it wasn't a fun experience, because it's so foreign to me to not have a net, to not play against another human. You're playing against a wall, essentially. Whereas padel, it's so similar to tennis, yet so different, and so I enjoyed it. And I know if I enjoy it and I kept thinking about it, it's like you said, it's going to take the world by storm.
Marcos, 100%. I know you like to be very respectful when it comes to the pickleball game. You're generally respectful. You don't have to be so respectful. It's okay. It's just us on this podcast. But have you ever played pickleball? And when I'm sure you have. And what do you think of the pickleball game? You find it boring?
I've tried, several times. Let's say that I see, where the success of pickleball is coming from. I think they are doing great, for bringing more and more people to the racket sport industry. In my case, to be honest, I obviously enjoy padel way more than other racket sports. If I gotta put an order in there, it could be padel first, and tennis, and then pickleball. That's my pick.
But why? For the audience members who haven't played padel, just differentiate the two sports. Why for you is padel your game?
For me, because it's a little bit more dynamic, it's very social as well. You play on turf as well, so it's very comfy. The environment that we are playing with.
More athletic. You got to be more athletic to play padel.
You can be, so you don't need to, but you can be. So let's say that the pathway, for athletic players, it can become a little bit more dynamic, and aggressive, if you will. Because the rallies in padel are crazy, man. We have, rallies over a minute. The ball is always coming back, and doing crazy things. What I love about padel, and I'm still in love with the sport like 20 years ago or even more, man. So every single day is a new challenge for me. But what I really like about it is like the possibility of getting crazy things happening all the time. I think it is an incredible product for television because of that. Because it's like every single second is something crazy happening. So there's no way that you can leave the television. When you watch a padel match, man, you gotta be there all the time, because every single second something crazy is gonna happen. And I can wait to get all these players, that we are now recruiting and will be drafting on the 20th, to jump into the court and start doing the magic things that they can do, and put that on television and spread the word out, and getting all the 300 million population of the United States, engaged with the sport, with all the opportunities that that is going to bring for all of us. I can see here an incredible pathway for the players, after the PPL, or by combining PPL, by doing other things. So great things are coming. I'm really, really proud and committed, to keep this going, and let's keep trying our best.
Marcos, you brought up the draft.
Sorry. If I can just ask this question, and we'll finish off on pickleball. Let's not ever discuss pickleball again on this podcast. But could the top pickleball players make the cut in the PPL league at all?
I cannot tell you. So I'm not, versed enough on pickleball for letting. I know some of the players, and they are very talented. And some of them are coming from tennis, and some of them are coming from other racket sports as well. So why not? I can envision, a great opportunity for current pickleball players to start practicing a little bit of padel and becoming part of the draft, in the upcoming years in PPL. I think that as soon as we will be putting this, on television and growing the game, will have, an incredible response, some crossover of players, doing both things at a time. I can envision, players playing tennis and also padel and also, pickleball or some other racket sports. I think this is coming.
Davis, the owners of our Arkansas franchise, Barbara, Johan, and Shannon, and Marcos has been to their facility, which is world class. They have tennis, they have padel, and they have pickleball. So these things can coexist. And Johan and Shannon were top U.S. tennis players, and they now play padel a lot. I don't know how much pickleball they play. I know Barbara plays pickleball.
Well, it takes on a new life, a racket club, and what a racket club could be. Like as a racket club, as a modern racket club, have tennis, padel, pickleball, and squash. Maybe that's the most modern way of handling a racket club.
I think tennis.
I can tell you that
would be very challenging.
That is where the industry is headed. I can tell you. So this concept of all racket sports together, that is where the future is headed.
Yeah.
And that's, what is giving us the opportunity to start bringing, players what I usually call from the blue ocean. So let's say that big numbers here, but we have kind of 40 million players connected with racket sports now, but the population in the US is 330 million. So we have like 280 million people that we can start approaching, or we can start reaching to come, to get a racket in their hands and to play, whether it's padel, tennis, pickleball, whatever. We have an entire blue ocean that we need to conquer, and we got to do it all together.
Okay, guys, I think it's time that we talk about what I think is the most exciting thing about this whole thing, and that's the upcoming draft. Who's in the draft? How did you get in the draft? And how this all works? How did teams get their players? Can they sign players? Marcos or Keith, I'll leave it to you. But I guess my first main question is the draft. You mentioned it earlier, is March 20th. That's a week Monday, Marcos. You've got some excited players who've entered this draft. How many did you have enter to be eligible for the draft?
I think that we have almost 500 people that applied.
Wow.
And now, the owners are getting in touch with them, and making their own, research and getting some interviews and so on. This is going to be so exciting. And I'm extremely excited because of the fact that we are putting together both things, like the magic of padel with the American model, and I'm proud, that we are making this happen, and I want to give, Keith and the team the credit for this, because I think that we are kind of Americanizing this sport, or making it, American, and I think that is going to leave, a big legacy in there, because as soon as we are approaching, the sport on the American way somehow, that will resonate, with the American people or North American people way more.
Do you know is there a bit of a breakdown on North American versus, let's call them European or international players within the draft? Is it like a split, or because that would show the growth already? If you had a lot of American players already signed up for the draft, that shows the growth already.
I could say that is kind of 60 or 65%, coming from North America, and 35% are coming from outside.
That's great.
Because our main priority was creating an ecosystem for the North American players to have a platform to succeed. So the main goal in here is, as I told you at the very beginning, is building this new opportunity, or building this new range of players from North America first. And the way that we structure the competition is mainly focused on that. So we are allowing, the teams to get 2 players from outside, and let's say international players, and 6 of them gotta come from North America. So I think that we are pushing really hard for making the sport growth in North America.
If we didn't have that restriction, Davis, some of our team owners, we talked about how competitive they are. They might want to have all 8 players from overseas, from Europe. Because let's face it, the North American players are good, but the European players are better.
They have more years of experience with this, right? There's a bigger culture of this.
Yes.
I think what this league does is it by having some international players, you bridge that. You need, how does somebody get better? You have to play against the best, right?
That's the point. The point is giving the opportunity for, let's say, international players and American players to compete, or join somehow and start improving the level of the sport in the United States, Canada, and Mexico.
How many players per team?
Keith, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, each team is going to draft up to 8 players, but there will be 4 core players, 2 male and 2 female players. But the other 4 players will be available to the team as alternates in case of injury, or maybe they're going to be subbed in because for strategic reasons.
So walk me through how a team goes about winning a match. They play, I'm assuming, a men's match, a women's match, and then what's the tiebreaker? A mixed?
Yeah, you got it, bro. You got it. So we set up, women first, then men second, and in case of a tie, we'll be playing a mixed double, which is going to be a very interesting thing. And also, I think, as far as I'm concerned, we are going to be the only ones that are putting this together on an official competition and putting that together on television as well. So I can wait to get, that experience, of mixed double, and also that is also giving us the opportunity to highlight, how female players, are important for the growth of the sport. So demographics in here are, I would say, 60% of the players worldwide are men, 40 or 45% are women. So we got to put a lot of attention on female players. And that's the way that we created this competition because of that, hey, we wanted to bring, the importance of supporting female players and making them to play all together.
Keith, you at the club one day, in walked you and this gentleman named Gene Simmons. People may know him. Will he be playing in the Padel League? And how do you know him?
Gene is 73 years old. But he's got good height. He's 6'2".
Do we have an age restriction? Do we have an age restriction on the teams?
He could play for the Vegas team. He could be a good fit there. So Gene has been my friend and business partner for over 2 decades. We're actually partners in a vodka company. Shout out to Moneybag Vodka. And our producer, Toronto Mike, I was listening to one of his podcasts. I can't remember the guest. And the guest was talking about the time he was at a Davis Cup match in Toronto, and in walked Gene Simmons. And I really thought that was funny because I brought Gene to that tennis match. And I remember we talked to Felix afterwards. Can't remember if we talked to Dennis. But anyway, no, Gene will come out to some matches. He's one of the smartest marketing guys in the world. This is not only a great rock band, it's a great rock brand. I'd like to get him involved in a little bit from a business perspective. We'll talk to him.
And when does this all kick off? When can we expect? When can a fan expect to watch it on TV? What station? What time? I want to know everything. Marcos, I need to know. Is it 6:15 p.m. Eastern time? I need to know.
Then Keith, before we go to that, I think that's a big piece, but I don't want to leave. I don't know how much time we have in here, but I don't want to leave without mentioning, because man, I wanna give a shout out, a kudos to all the team owners in here. I think we mentioned our consult, with Shannon, Johan, and Barbara, but I don't want to forget, obviously, the incredible owner that we have in Toronto with Sale and their team. I also want to mention Osvaldo.
Josh, API, the largest security company in America.
Say that again.
Josh.
And Josh, yeah. Sale and Josh in Toronto. I also wanna say thank you to Osvaldo and the group coming from Mexico. And I think we already mentioned all of them, because we couldn't be in here.
Marcos, I'm going to cut you off because our producer Mike wants to know why Keith sounds like a robot.
Keith, did you go underwater by any chance?
No, nothing's changed.
This is the underwater podcast.
You can't hear me?
It's garbled. Something changed about 3-4 minutes ago.
Test. Don't know. You can't hear me?
Well, we can hear you.
Hear...
It's like you're underwater. It's a bit garbled. Like I said, when you see me, it means something went wrong. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Test.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, you're good.
Good.
So I can clean this up, but can we throw back?
Wrap up.
Let me disappear and then throw. Well,
and guys, Marcus and I have to go on a call with Davis soon. Broadcast call. So we have
I'm
to wrap.
going. You finish up.
So Marcos, finish off what you're saying, but what I really want to hear about is when is this thing starting, and when can we start to get excited about everything?
Now.
Well, I'm already excited, but how can everybody else get excited?
So we'll be on one of the 3 major networks for our championship match, and then we'll be on networks, local and regional networks across the country, starting in mid-May. Just stay tuned. I will be announcing all this information on our website and on our team websites. So the information will be disseminated. Just stick around. We'll let you know.
Excellent. Marcos, anything else to add about the league and the upcoming draft?
Well, I would encourage everyone to follow, our YouTube channel, Instagram account, Facebook account, LinkedIn account, Pro Padel League. Look for that on the internet and try to follow our steps, because this year will be hopefully a great success for all of us. But we'll be facing, here too, with more players, more team, more opportunities for everybody. And I would love everybody to be part of this big challenge for all of us.
Excellent. Well, guys, it was wonderful talking to you both. Appreciate you being on the podcast. You guys were incredible to talk to. I want to leave you, Keith, because I want to bring you back another time with a major question here. And this will be answered next time we get together. Where is this league in 3 years from now? So you're not answering that now, but I want you to think about that. But where do you see this league 3 years from now? Marcos, I know you want to answer right now, but you can't either. But it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure having you both on the program, and this is going to be a great journey that we can all go on.
Hey, wait, Davis, before you end, please, you know what our league slogan is, and you have to cue Marcos to say it.
Marcos, 1, 2, 3.
Vamos!
Oh, yeah. All right, guys, it was a pleasure. Speak to you soon.